We're doing something a little different today. We're gonna focus on some world building, which is also one of my favorite things to do, surrounding tabletop role-playing. And we're doing it with just-in-time World Building's Mullany. World Building Blueprints, Volume 1, hot off the press. Let's go. Welcome back to the channel, gamers. This is the Sacred Art of Gaming. I am Sacred, and thank you so much for exploring this wonderful hobby with me today. Just gonna hang out a bit while we do a little bit of world building. What is this book? Why is it cool? Well, for starters, it has it has our signature on it, and there was a lot of stress about putting this. I don't know if this is a European thing or what, but there was a lot of detailed instructions for putting that in there. But also, what's really cool is, boom! Where is it? Sacred Art of Gaming! I know my name is in a few books for Kickstarters. I've lost track of which ones, but this one for some reason stood out to me because it's probably in the front of the book. Alright, so what the hell is this book? So we're gonna jump right to the table of contents as we do to give you an idea of like, what the hell are we getting into? So, we've got many thick chapters that we're looking at, almost 400 pages. This is a beautiful book. It's got a ribbon. The feel of it is amazing. We're looking at about 8 chapters. Finding our North Star, and this is all under the context of world building, adding fantasy, crafting the natural world, creating cultures, material conditions, building the economy, create identities and religions. I feel like I'm naming like Jeopardy topics. And a day in the life of. All right, so we obviously don't have all the time in the world to give away the entire book, but we are gonna kind of page through it just to give you a feel, because what she showed in the Kickstarter is what convinced me. I'm just gonna cover up these URLs because I don't know how sensitive those are in the QR codes. Alright, so yeah, seeing the layout of the book and how it was built out, that is what sold me on the Kickstarter, to be perfectly honest. Just really spoke to me the way everything was laid out in the worksheets. All of it looked really cool. So who is this book for? So fantasy authors, but also game masters who are just into world building, dare I even say solo role players. A lot of us like to solo role play to build out a world, and I think you could definitely do that here. You got all these fun different ways to give you tips and tricks and caveats and deep dive examples, marking ideas, etc. Some of this stuff in the beginning is going to be pretty easy for us game masters and solo role players because finding your North Star, for example, it's going to depend on where the story takes you, and also you are the audience, so that's going to be pretty easy, and she probably says something like that down here. So what is great about this book is that there are all these worksheets. So this is a very interactive experience. This is not just 400 pages of you reading stuff. She's going to apply something that I came up with on my own, never been said before, crawl, walk, run, because she's gonna show you a little bit of stuff. She's also going to offer you her YouTube videos and then give you these worksheets that you can fill out. So there's a lot of cool stuff in here. And this one may not be too helpful for us because this is like what I guess it would be you as the audience, right? So what are some things that you're looking for? You can write these things down, and all of these worksheets come together to help you build your world, really, and figure out like what is important for you. Understanding your story. What are some things that you want to touch on? What is the conflict? Because that's where the story lives, right? Is where the good guys and the bad guys both want something, and they want different things, and they're getting in each other's way. That's where the story really lives. Some stuff at the tail end of chapter 1 that I think is pretty important, which is defining your world's scope and getting ideas to like, what is the scale that we're working with here? Blades in the Dark does an excellent example zooming in on something like Duskfall, where you get this living, breathing world, you really feel like you're there, and I think a big part of that is because we're zoomed in so closely on that city. Next, we get to add the fantasy, and if you're doing a fantasy system or sci-fi or whatever it is that you're playing in your world, maybe a mix of both, What is it that's unique and weird for your world, and how do you want to build it out? We do a lot of examples with Stormlight Archive, which is one of my favorites. And there's some really thought-provoking questions in some of these worksheets. So, is magic a reflection on human society in your world? Is magic a vehicle for personal growth and self-discovery in your plot? Does magic provide you with a way to explore philosophical or ethical questions in your world? And I think all of these can be twisted in a fun way as a solo role player and a game master. Really sets up what you're exploring. Some really cool questions asked here that, dare I say, you don't figure all of this stuff out. I think it's more fun to figure it out as you solo play, but you know, how do consumables work? What are the effects and how can you use it? How is it made? So that's a perfect example of maybe you're playing the game, something like Numenera, and you have no idea how this thing is made or even what it's really intended to do, but all you know is that you can cut someone's head off with it right now. Maybe it's a part of an old helicopter for all you know. And how does the fantasy affect the geographic world? Are there fun minerals or rocks? Think like Dragon Age with the lyrium and the red lyrium and how all of that plays into things. It's a lot of fun to be had there. And then we can craft the natural world, because the whole world does not have to be fantastical from top to bottom, right? It's important to have some things that you're familiar with. Maybe there are wild boars and there are caves and there are fun things like that. And I love this little biome pyramid. So simple but gets the point across. I dig that a lot. You can really dive deep, no pun intended, into things like fertile soils and how that affects your world. And then we've got some cool like location features, names, type, biomes. And a lot of games, we'll use Dolmenwood as an example. Dolmenwood does a lot of this. Land of Eam also, where you've got these rich sandbox worlds, and whenever you go to certain sections, a lot of this is kind of done for you. And there'll be like quests and, you know, what's in that area. Go into like the ecosystems as well, which can be really interesting. Taming and domestication, your flora, your fauna. Really cool stuff. And also the art. The art is super cool. Your sapient species, which is a perfect transition to the next section, but you know, maybe you have plants or cactus or moths. I've been reading too much Wild Sea. That are sapient creatures, and how does that affect things? Which brings us to creating cultures. This section is massive. It's like 100 pages. And of course we are kind of breezing through this pretty quick because it is a pretty thick book. And this is not the core of what I do on my channel, but I thought it was a cool thing I want to share. I love this cultural framework. I love anything with a visual representation, really, but it shows the material conditions and the identities here. We've got everything from cultural ideology all the way to cultural expression. You've got your lists of different cultures. You can have cultures within. We were talking about moth people. Maybe there are subcultures within those moth people. And then we have the circles of culture. Very fun. We can sit in culture all day, but there's defining the language of a culture, which does say a lot about them. Rituals for that culture. Religion, I think, is also a part of this section. Family structures and how that works. How different is it from what we're used to in the real world? Governments and laws, my goodness. Yeah, cultures is massive. Art and culture. Strategy. So this is actually a strategy game within the culture, I think, like chess, for example, and gambling. Yeah, really cool. I actually forgot about that part. The history and the subcultures, my goodness. All right, let's get to material conditions, because the first time I saw it, I was like, what the hell does that even mean? So there are categories to this like homes, agriculture, communication, medical, sanitization, and hygiene. And how does that affect your world? And you'll notice that this book as a whole really starts to get you to think about what's behind the curtain, in a sense, and you're almost building like a system for your world that's going to answer a lot of your questions for you. In solo play, I think that's awesome because your oracles can build on that to help you get to your answers a little more efficiently. What type of technology levels do they have? Really cool. Everything all the way up to futuristic and then magic levels. That is going to change things quite a bit. Fantasy levels. And I think this is really cool. Like, do you have like a Final Fantasy style? Like, are they using magic while they're farming? I guess it depends on the Final Fantasy, right? Is there magical healing? Like, all of this stuff has second and third order effects. Then we have building the economy. And if you are someone who does a lot of trading, if you do a lot of trading, you go to these dungeons and you pull all this loot and stuff, there could be a fun game to be had where maybe going to certain places gives you more money than others. Same thing with like pirate and traveling type games. Maybe you buy stuff from one place and you sell it in another for a profit. And wealth and resources a lot of times drives things like warfare. And with that said, we've got worksheets to kind of show like who controls the land, the livestock, the food, the crops, the metal, the ore. So there could be an interesting relationship between these different cultures, between these different peoples or sentient species where, you know, maybe someone lives on the land, but someone else controls the ore, for example. And, you know, one of them needs the land, one of them needs the ore. You know, how do they work that out? Is it always worked out in a peaceful way? Probably not, but maybe. Oh, yeah, she dives really deep into the microeconomic framework. This is definitely further along in the book, so this is probably going to be one of the things for me personally that I would not focus on initially in a solo play, but I guess it depends on the type of solo play. All right, then we got create identities and religions. There it is, which I think this is pretty important. I think this is really cool whenever you're discovering something like Cartograph, you're discovering all of these new interesting places and peoples. Get into, like, especially fantasy games, a lot of them have like clerics and paladins where their religion is their identity. And then if you want to take a step back before that, we even dive into like metaphysics before you even dive into gods and spiritual forces. Really cool to be thinking about your metaphysical reality. Is it objective or subjective? How universal truth drives culture and religion? What drives culture and religion without universal truth? And I imagine as you go through all of these worksheets, you're gonna inadvertently, well, I guess you're going through them, so it's intentional, but you're gonna build out a lot and you're gonna ask a lot of questions. What type of divine focus do we have? More cool art, your end time myth or prophecy, that's a good one. Sacred texts and symbols, a lot of good stuff in here. Religion, social impact, and then last but certainly not least, a day in the life. So what's really cool about this is that you kind of get into the minds of the people that are living in this place at this time. What do they do? Like, what's a normal day for them? Do they just go to the market? They walk down the street and it's in the town center? Do they get in a do they ride a wagon that's powered by red fire rockets? I don't know, some kind of crazy a hover wagon. And then you can get into like the hygiene and the clothing, which, you know, it'll be different depending on where you go. Really cool stuff. What are their routines like? What do they do once it's nighttime? Does everyone stay in because they're terrified? Or does everyone go out because it was too hot during the day? And then we have our index of all of the worksheets, which there are quite a few. Ooh, yeah, so there's a lot there. For context, I personally have not gone through all these worksheets. I just got this fairly recently. I've just been going through the book and nerding out over it and just got my brain juices thinking. And how I want to talk about my world building maybe in a future video. Let me know if that interests you. This has been The Sacred Art of Gaming. Comment below if you got the book or what your world building process is like. Is there any similarities? Do you go as deep? Do you go surface level? Do you go in a completely different direction? Let's hear about it. Like the video if you enjoyed this content, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I'll see you in the next one as we continue to explore the sacred art of gaming together. Doing something a little different today. We're talking about world building. With just-in-time world building for the world building Marie Mullany.